Welcome to Reading the Gospels Together, and today we return to Jerusalem in John chapter 5. Jesus made the long trip back to the Holy City from Galilee for another traditional feast day, where we aren't told which one. And as he and his disciples are making their way to the temple, they stop at the pools of Bethesda for some ritual preparation. Now, in order to enter the temple area, you were required to prepare your body for worship, and that meant a ritual bath. The purpose was not physical cleanliness, although that was doubtless a side effect, but ritual purity. You briefly immersed rather than scrubbed. Now, some of these baths, and they're called mikveh, were no bigger than a small hot tub, while others were Olympic-sized pools. Hundreds of small mikvot, the plural of mikveh is mikvot, are scattered throughout Israel. And they generally have steps leading down to a squarish tub-type area. You would enter, squat down to immerse, and then immediately exit. Now, some wealthier homes had their own mikveh for personal family use, while places like the temple had dozens surrounding the temple area, including some great big ones for community use. One of these is the Pool of Siloam, which we'll visit in a couple of weeks. The biggest is the Pools of Bethesda, which we'll visit today. And they are big. The whole complex is 120 by 50 meters and 15 meters deep. An Olympic-sized pool is only 50 meters long, so that gives you an idea. The pool, which is divided by a wall or a dam across the middle, so it's rectangular like this, and the wall goes this way. It's bigger than a football field, including the end zones. Now, since it's divided in the middle, we talk about two pools, the northern and the southern pool, each about 60 by 50 meters. And there's a covered porch around the perimeter, plus along that division in the middle, which is why the gospel talks about 5 porticos or colonnades. Being so vast, the pool functioned not only as a ritual bath, but as a water supply for the temple as well, with water brought in from the north by aqueduct. Large steps or landings lead down into the water so it can be accessed regardless of level, which fluctuated throughout the season. Now, only the southern pool was used for ritual bathing. The northern pool, which was slightly higher, functioned as a reservoir. Now, recent archaeological discoveries led by Shimon Gibson, a great guy with whom I've enjoyed some very interesting conversations, they revealed something very interesting and important to the story that John tells. Important, too, to understanding how intimately familiar John is with the Jerusalem of Jesus' day. I'll keep you in suspense about that for just a moment longer. So, Jesus and the disciples come to the pool. The porches of the southern pool are occupied by a large number, John tells us, of invalids. They are there for several reasons. First of all, pilgrims approaching the temple, preparing to enter into worship, would give these invalids alms as preparation for worship. Also, secondly, the pool area was shaded by these colonnades, and due to the water, it was a little bit cooler in that area in the heat of the summer sun. And perhaps most of all, there was hope for healing. And some ancient manuscripts of the gospel tell us why. And your Bible probably has this as a footnote. Now, it's footnoted because the generally more reliable manuscripts don't have this verse. Check your own Bible. Is there a chapter 5, verse 4, or does your Bible go right from verse 3 to verse 5? If it does, you'll see a footnote. And that footnote is the otherwise missing last half of verse 3 and all of verse 4. And it says this after telling us of the many disabled folks gathered around the pool. It says, "And they waited for the moving of the waters. From time to time," says verse 4, "an angel of the Lord would come down and stir up the waters, and the first one into the pool after each such disturbance would be cured of whatever disease they had." Now hold that in your hat. We'll get back to that in a moment. Jesus takes note of a fellow who had been there as an invalid for 38 long years. And what does Jesus ask this fellow? A seemingly obvious question. Do you want to get well? The fellow replies, "Sir, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." Now, what's going on here? Well, the missing verse 4 tells us there was a belief, again, it was a superstition, that an angel would occasionally come and stir the waters. And once this happened, first man in the pool, it was thought, would have an opportunity to be healed by the freshly blessed water. Now, our poor fellow was never first in, despite 38 years of trying. He had no one to help him. And that's a tremendously sad thought. That's a heartbreaking little part of the story for me. 38 lonely, friendless years. Not a single person to help this fellow into the water. But what's actually going on with this angel touching the water story? Well, the truth is a little bit less mystical. Remember that the northern pool, fed by aqueduct, is a reservoir for the southern bathing pool. Now, Jewish law said that for the water in a ritual bath to be considered ritually pure, it didn't have to be drained and then refilled after a period of use. It only had to have a quantity of ritually clean water added to have the whole thing regarded as once again pure. Think of a swimming pool. You don't change all the water every few weeks. You just add more clean water and some chemicals, and it's ready for swimming again. Now, in that pre-chemical area, you just added a portion of clean water, and you were ready for ritual cleansing again. Now, remember our man Shimon Gibson. By studying countless other mikvot throughout Israel, and by reading this story carefully, he concluded that there must have been an underwater sluice gate between the pools, which could be periodically opened, and then water from the higher north part of the pool could flow into the lower. And he found that very thing in the excavated ruins of the pools of Bethesda just a few years ago, including even the mechanism and method for making this work. Now, here's what was revolutionary about his discovery. Rather than letting water simply flow over the top of the dam, the sluice gate was at the bottom of the pool. When it would be opened, letting the clean water in from the northern pool, so the southern pool would be clean again, the water would come in from below, and guess what would naturally happen? The water in the southern pool would be stirred, the fresh water bubbling up as though an angel had touched the water. A state of perfect ritual purity would momentarily exist, and the belief went, if you were first in when that happened, you stood a better chance of being blessed with a healing. Now, why is this important? It's because only someone intimately familiar with the Jerusalem of the day would know of such a detail. See, in 70 AD, the whole Bethesda pool system was wrecked by the invading Romans, obscuring the way it worked. The whole temple was destroyed. Now, this seemingly unimportant and odd detail about how this water actually happened and the result of the fresh water stirring the old tells us a lot about the accuracy and the first-hand knowledge of the writer of the gospel. He was there. Remember, when the Gospel of John is being written, it's well after the Romans had destroyed Jerusalem, and it's being written in Ephesus, 1,000 miles away from Jerusalem. But John had been there, and he knew how these things worked, and told us of it. We only discovered it just recently again. Now, John also heard Jesus asking the man the odd question, do you want to get well? Well, of course the man wants to get well. But rather than say yes, he complains about the situation. Maybe you know someone who seems to complain about their situation, but somehow never take steps to correct it. Or they just passively wait for others to solve the problem for them. Or they just wish it would go away. Maybe it's an unaddressed illness. Maybe it's a family conflict. Maybe it's a hated job. Maybe it's a miserable or an abusive marriage. Have you ever been tempted to ask them, do you really want to get well? Or do you really want to take the necessary steps to make a change? Or is your misery so much a part of who you now are, you can't imagine life any other way, and you enjoy complaining about it more then you're willing to take steps to change the situation? Well, these are hard questions. Jesus cuts right through them and through the superstitions regarding the water, and he simply says to the man, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. And incredibly, after 38 years, the man is immediately cured, and he does just that. And believe it or not, he gets in trouble for doing so. And to find out why, you're going to have to tune in next time for part 2 of John chapter 5. See you then.